This is the field of 68. I'm Vince Wolfram.
I'm JOJO CAVANAGH in Auburn, Alabama. And this
is Straight Out the Jungle. Welcome back to Straight Out the Jungle. My name is Vince Wolfram.
I'm JOJO CAVANAGH.
And today the Georgia Bulldogs came into Neville Arena and we had another chippy one on our hands. And if it wasn't for Johni Broome, it would have been even more chippy towards the end. An 82-70 win for the #1 Auburn Tigers, led by Johni Broome. But obviously the game, there were some technicals again. We talked about it last game. The chippiness, you could tell these states were neighbors, the state of Auburn and the state of Georgia. And that was evident from the start.
Yeah, there were 4 technicals on one play. That is crazy in itself. But Bruce Pearl brought up Auburn has won 13 of the last 16 against Georgia. And he said, for a rivalry game, he was like, I love it. I know the students love it. And you said you were right next to the benches. You were right on the court. So you heard Johni Broome chirping. But 4 technicals in one play. I mean, I feel like that described this game. There were multiple points where Georgia players were talking at Auburn players, Auburn talking at Georgia. So the Deep South's oldest rivalry in basketball was in full formation today.
Yeah, definitely was in complete full effect. And like you said, I was down there. I was hearing everything from the Georgia bench to the Auburn players, from the Auburn players to the Georgia bench. It was a conversation back and forth, but a lot of it was because of dominant play. And dominant play for Auburn began with Johni Broome tonight. He and Miles Kelly got the game off to a pretty quick start. But Johni just overall today, National Player of the Year, full display. He did it. He was the reason Auburn won today. In a game where Auburn struggled, especially offensively, Johni Broome was the answer.
Yeah, he started us off really, and then a little bit slowed down in the last few minutes of the first half and beginning of the second half. But then the bottom of the second half was Johni Broome. He had 31 points, 19 in the second half. 17 of those 19 were in the last 13 minutes of the game. There was one stretch where Auburn's last 7 points were Johni Broome. And there was this other stat that was brought up that Johni Broome is the first SEC player this century since Ben Simmons to record this many points, rebounds, and assists. 31 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists. Second since Ben Simmons in this century. I mean, if this isn't National Player of the Year, we say this all the time, but there obviously is still argument for Cooper Flagg. He's playing in Madison Square Garden tonight, so curious to see how he plays in that environment, as a Knicks fan. 17 points in the last 13 minutes. Every time Johni Broome had the ball, you knew it was going in because he was perfect from the floor. Perfect from the floor.
Yeah, I was looking forward to that matchup between he and Asa Newell, because those are 2 bigs that have dominated both physically, offensively, and on defense all season long. And in the first matchup, Auburn didn't have Johni Broome. This matchup they did, and that matchup was on full display. That was, I think, part of the reason of the talking. It was Johni Broome. Every time he scored, if you go back and watch the broadcast, you can see Johni kind of give the bench a look, like, I'm here. I'm here. And he turned around at some point and he said, I'm the man. And I couldn't have rephrased it any different, because he was the man. 17 points, like you said, in the second half. He had 31 on the day. A stat that jumped out to me, though, he had 14 rebounds, which is not unlike Johni numbers. 6 offensive. 6 offensive rebounds for Johni tonight led to 17 Auburn second chance points. That was a big deal, especially in the first half. Auburn couldn't get offense going to save their life. If they wanted to make a shot, they couldn't hit the side of the barn if they tried.
Yeah, they were losing the rebounding battle in the first half.
It felt like it too. Like the physicality of Georgia. Auburn couldn't drive the ball and score. They couldn't knock down shots. I mean, at halftime, it was like Tennessee again. It was one of those lame-o first halves where if you were coming to watch a great offensive outpouring, you should have switched the channel.
Yeah.
It was one of those kind of games, but the constant, we've talked about it in the season, game to game. This game, I thought it was half to half. Start of the game with 20 minutes to play, zeros on the shot clock. Johni Broome was a constant. He played 36 minutes. He played 36 minutes and 5 seconds. He was a constant A-plus piece for Auburn tonight across the board.
Bruce Pearl talked about, he said he wasn't even expecting to play Johni Broome that much. He played nearly the entire game. There were just crucial moments. I think Tahad misses a 3. Tahad, first off, gets his own rebound, so great on him for following the play. Johni gets a 3. And just every time Johni Broome shoots a 3, you feel like Neville Arena goes silent. And then when it goes in, Neville Arena erupts. Just a history-making game for him. It was, I think, his 17th double-double. He is 1 double-double away from tying Auburn's record, and it was set gazillion years ago by a guy named Mike Mitchell who played in the NBA for a long time. So making history in that point, and he brought that up. He said, my goal for Auburn is he wants to make history. He's making history in that way. Number 1 team in the country, chance to become National Player of the Year, chance to lead Auburn to a national championship. And there was one play that I think took Twitter ablaze. So Dylan Cardwell gets the steal, lobs it across the entire
It felt
court.
like it was in the air for 3 years.
Literally lobs it across the entire court to Chad Baker-Mazara, and then Johni Broome one-handed slam. And he quoted Justin Jefferson after this, which I know Johni Broome is a big Minnesota Vikings fan, so that makes sense. But he said, when I see the ball, then I'm going to go get it. Accurate. That play was insane.
Yeah, it was. And Dylan first getting the ball. He was in Dylan's Cardwell fashion tonight all night, I thought,
Great defensively.
outside of the fouls, but the creating second chance and getting his hands on the basketball. He went and got a loose ball. And when he chucked this ball, I'm watching the ball like it felt like those movies. It almost felt like cinema where it was like they threw the ball and you went. And then all of a sudden it ends up in Chad Baker-Mazara's hands, and you wonder, how in the world did Chad Baker-Mazara find Johni? And he takes the ball, and he found him somehow, and Johni said...
One-handed slam.
He said in the press conference, he said, oh, my head was at the rim? Like that was the game they were talking about? Yeah, that was the play, Johni, and he slammed it home, and I think the roof caved in at Neville Arena when that happened.
It most definitely did. That was definitely the play of the game.
Yeah, it was the peak of the game, and we talked about in the first half, the Auburn's offense didn't have it going, but... Johni was that constant. Here's a good number for you.
And
First
that play
half,
also was after the 4 technicals.
Yes.
So that was
a
right after that
charged up.
huge break, which I think Bruce
Huge
Pearl talked
charged
about. Didn't
up
really think
energy.
Denver Jones deserved a technical in that. I think Auburn was charged up because there was a Georgia player, Damari Jr., who kind of antagonized that whole little schizo, whatever you want to call it. So just that play after such like a dramatic point of this game was crucial.
Yeah, that spiff was pretty interesting because it charged up both sides. Like I think it got Asa Newell going a little bit, but it also charged up CBM.
Oh, yeah.
And it also charged up Johni Broome, obviously. CBM I thought was big because after that he made free throws, had the big assists, and he was firing up the jungle. He had the hand going, got the jungle popping. But in the first half, I just want to go back to this quick because it felt like a different game. The second half felt like a completely different ball game than the first. When I say the Auburn shot bad in the first half, they were 11 for 36 from the field. 11 of 36. And out of 11, Johni Broome had 4 of those baskets. Denver had 2, Miles had 2. All of a sudden, there's 8. 8 of the 11 baskets they scored were from 3 guys combined. That's horrible.
Yeah.
In the second half, they totally...
And then coming off a game where
totally
they shot
switched that up.
horrible offensively against Arkansas, doing that 2 games in a row is a little concerning, especially when Auburn started the game off on a 9-0 run. So you start off, you have that heart start again, which we've seen against Florida, Alabama. We saw it tonight. And then to just have that completely go away and start shooting horribly, definitely something to look at.
First half, they shot just less than 31%. Second half, they shot just shy of 60. A little different ball game when you shoot 60% versus 30, right? Finishing the game at around 43%. But I thought that was just the biggest thing. Auburn's ability to make shots in the second half, despite the circumstances. And the circumstances were actually pretty real in this game, I thought. Look at the foul numbers. Dylan Cardwell, 4 fouls. Denver Jones, 4 fouls. Chaney Johnson, 4 fouls. Tahad Pettiford, 3 fouls. Miles Kelly with 3 fouls. So there was fouls all over the board. I feel like Georgia was in the bonus before I could sit down at my seat.
There were so many stoppage things.
There was stoppage. There was free throws. Auburn shot 28 free throws. Georgia shot 25. That's what kind of game this was. But similar to Arkansas, Auburn, at the end of the day, was able to slug out another victory. I think that's important because we talked about it a little bit last episode, but there's going to be games in March where you don't come with your best. Auburn did not come with their best in the first half. It might have been their worst.
And they found a way to win it.
They found a way to come back, put it together, and while that would have been usually through more than one guy, tonight it was through primarily one, and we'll talk about some other guys that certainly contributed later, but Johni Broome was the guy that stepped up, and that's how it should be, right? Your National Player of the Year.
When Auburn's not playing your best, step up.
He's going to step up. He's going to be the guy when his number is called, and his number is called all the time, but it was called emergency today, and Johni Broome picked up and answered. But I thought Johni just, across the board, playing 36 minutes on what we know is an ankle that's healing. He had a moment that I think everybody kind of held their breath. Oh, goodness, Johni. And then he ended up being fine, and he told it off in the press conference room, too. He's fine.
Yeah, he's like, I'm fine.
He's fine. Obviously, he's fine. He scored 31 points.
Yeah.
Had a great day, and he did have some help on the offensive end. And I mentioned Denver Jones with his 4 fouls. I think that came a lot from physicality. Let's talk about Denver real quick because on defense, another fantastic one. And this was a game that in the first half wasn't chippy like Arkansas. And when I say chippy, I mean Arkansas was vocally chippy. This game was physically chippy in the first half. There was a lot of bumping and nagging and shoulder popping. That's what it felt like. And for a guard like Silas Demery, his play style is get the rock and attack, and that's what he was doing. And Denver Jones was doing everything in his power to prevent it. So little hand-checky kind of fouls that put him in a tough spot. The technical foul, Bruce said he didn't like that because it gave Denver his fourth
foul.
That's what frustrated him about that. But Denver Jones on offense was the Robin to Johni Broome's Batman, and he stepped up in a major way.
Yeah, in the first half, he had 5 points. He ends up scoring double figures in the second half, 12 to lead with 17 points. But there was a point where Auburn was 1 for 9, and Denver shoots a 3, so gives Auburn an 8-point lead, 18-10. There was also another point, which I thought was really crucial to give Auburn another 8-point lead, but this was in the second half where there was close to the shot clock coming down. Chad misses, Johni gets the offensive rebound and just passes it to Denver. And Denver kind of has this jumper, which a Denver jumper is one of my favorite things to watch. But just Denver made shots when Auburn was either slugging it out, like I said, they were 1 for 9, or when the shot clock is winding down. And then also at the end, he gets fouled 3 times and makes 2, 4, 6, makes all of his free throws to give Auburn a 10-point lead. So they were just, whether it was shot clock winding down, whether it was at the end making crucial free throws, he made buckets in times where Auburn needed it.
Yeah, definitely. And they're relying on him more and more. I think that's a change that you've seen. He had those Florida-like games, had that little stretch in the middle of conference play there where they knew what Denver Jones could do, and he wasn't doing it in that moment. Since he has completely revitalized that, turned every bit of it around, and showed why he's the guy that's starting. People have questioned all year, why is Todd Pettiford not starting? Well, I think tonight in the last, 4 games now, 3-4 games, have proved exactly why. And it's not a knock against Todd either. It's proving how good Denver Jones is across the board, whether it's getting his teammates involved, whether it's getting his hands on basketballs defensively and getting steals and starting offense, or knocking down shots like he did in these last 4 games. But stepping into his role perfectly for Auburn right now. It's like a puzzle piece almost. They had they switched a couple different alike pieces in for that point guard piece when he wasn't playing very well, and Todd was, and now the puzzle piece I think fits perfectly in the puzzle of Auburn basketball.
I agree. When we go back to the last Georgia game, Todd Pettiford career high 24 points. I think Todd Pettiford obviously did not have his best game tonight. I think Georgia prepared for that because he went for a career high 24 points. And also his shots were just not coming down. He was 0 for 7 from the floor. But Bruce Pearl brought this up in that he still contributed to this game. He had 5 assists.
Big time. 5
assists that were crucial. Like I said, he missed his own 3, got the offensive rebound, led to Johni having a 3. He found Dylan under the basket for a really cool dunk. So he just, although it was not on the point side tonight, he contributed to this offense in 5 assists, which I feel like is going to go unnoticed.
Yeah, and it will, because I think there was fans in the building that Todd wasn't making shots, but he's a guy that everybody seems to believe in. Like, there always seems to be hope when Todd Pettiford's in the game, and despite not scoring, I think he recognized that too. He could impact the game. I always say this. He can impact the game in more ways than just scoring, and it's more than probably shows up in a stat sheet too. His energy off the bench, he's got some natural spunk to him that brings an extra element of spirit to this Auburn team. And when he was in, he was finding guys. They were more comfortable knocking down shots. So I thought his impact on the game way beyond just 0 in the points like in the made shots category. I think it's far beyond that, and especially in assisting others.
And I feel that same way about Todd Pettiford tonight as I do Dylan Cardwell. He had 4 points from the floor, but I feel like his impact defensively on this game in the first half, the matchup between Dylan Cardwell and Asa Newell was so much fun to watch. In the second half, Asa Newell ends up getting hot, but I thought Dylan Cardwell, like I said, he got that steal, which led to that insane Johni Broome dunk. He had that block, which led to a Georgia shot clock violation. There were just so many crucial defensive plays. I thought Dylan Cardwell had a really good defensive game, despite foul trouble.
Right, and I want to see the stat, like I've talked about before with Dylan, how many times his hand touches the basketball where it leads to points. I wish that was just I need to know that answer, because it seems like a shot goes up and it's missed. Who's going to be there? Superman, Dylan Cardwell, and he's going to tip it out. He literally intentionally twaps at the ball to try to get it out to to a guy on the perimeter, and those tiny little things, whether it's blocking out somebody or I noticed too on drives when the guards drive, he sets internal picks to try to close off a big man from getting to a guard that's driving, and that gives guards open layups. There's so many little tiny things that your average basketball watcher will not notice that Dylan Cardwell does that NBA scouts will, pros will, and everybody who wants Dylan Cardwell as a part of their future in basketball will absolutely see and they'll love, and that'll be the reason that they get that guy, because glue guy is one thing, and doing the right things at the right times is another thing, and Dylan Cardwell's gotten awfully good at that.
Yeah, Dylan Cardwell had 3 offensive rebounds. I feel like that doesn't do it justice because, like you said, every time he touches the ball, he is the one that is always under the basket, always the one fighting for those offensive rebounds. When Dylan Cardwell's on the court, he's the one fighting. You would never will see him not fighting for the ball.
Yeah, and his twin flame, Chaney, had a tough one tonight, and Bruce called it living in foul trouble. I thought he had some tough moments tonight. I was looking for a big game from him because I figured these
he had
matchups,
a chance to make history tonight too.
Matchup with these forwards, I thought would be something that he would capitalize on and relish in. And in the time he was in, he did a pretty good job scoring the basketball. He did solid in making sure he was involved in the game. Still had 4 points.
But perfect from the floor from those 4
Perfect
points.
from the floor. It felt like you could start to get him going maybe, and then another foul would come. So tough luck for Chaney tonight.
Yeah, one of those was his turnaround jumper, which I said this last week. That is my favorite shot on this team.
Come on. It's like cupcakes in a bakery. Gotta love it.
But with Chaney Johnson in foul trouble, Jaheim Hudson got in the game early, and he snapped an Auburn scoring skid that was over 4 minutes. He goes, misses, gets his own offensive rebound, and makes it to give Auburn a 5-point lead, 15-10. But I just thought him coming in right away, because Chaney Johnson had just gotten his, I think it was his second foul, coming in, contributing, making minutes, and then also going back to offensive rebounds, he had 3 offensive rebounds in just 8 minutes. So Turtle made an impact tonight.
Yeah, 3 important ones too. It's not like it was just the ball came to him. One of them was on his own miss.
Yep.
He went and got his own rebound.
That snapped a 4-minute skid.
And scored the rock. So Jaheim Hudson making an impact off the bench is exactly what you need in a game like this. In a game that's the potty bowl of basketball games, Jaheim Hudson coming in off the bench. You need another spark. You're down a big man with Chaney Johnson. You don't want to get Dylan in there and get him another one. Who do you rely on? It was Johni Broome for 36 minutes, but you want another guy. And Jaheim certainly stepped up and made that impact. He felt he looked comfortable. I'm sure he felt comfortable too, getting in the game and making a difference. But certainly good to see Turtle get off the bench and come in and make some noise.
I agree. That's exactly what you want. That's what you want to see when Chaney Johnson is in foul trouble, when Johni Broome had to step out, when him and Dylan were on the court on the same time. That's what you want to see from someone who doesn't really get that many minutes in the game, but when it happens, he's making an impact, and that is huge, which could lead to more minutes in the future.
Yeah, and we talked about Turtle's bucket in the paint. The paint is, I think, another way that Auburn won the game tonight, and obviously you add Johni Broome into that, and it's a pretty big component. Auburn outdid Georgia in the paint 38-26 tonight. It's hard to stop Auburn when they're scoring in the painted area around that charge arc. If they're scoring the basketball from there, they're tough to stop. They couldn't get the 3 to fall in the first half very much, so they were relying on that. They were punching the paint and trying to score that way, and they ended up capitalizing on that probably more than they realize. Like, I think you'll think of the Johni threes, you'll think of the Denver threes, you think of the Chad threes, the Miles getting his shots from the arc, but I think a lot of it was just pounding the paint and getting to the glass and finding Johni on the block and getting it to Chaney when he was in. Turtle scoring second chance buckets. So a lot of they outdid him in second chance points too. So those two go hand in hand. But those things, I think, scoring in the paint, it's something that's so easily overlooked, and you can just move right past it. Just say, oh, Auburn shot, they shoot 27% from 3 today. Oh, that's terrible. Well, they dominated in the paint, and that was, I thought, a major reason why they won the game.
And when you think of three-point shooting, you think of guys like Miles Kelly and Chad Baker-Mazar, and Chad had 2 threes, Miles had 1, but they both still scored in double figures, which means that they were finding other ways to score. When it wasn't working beyond the arc, Miles Kelly was driving to the basket. Chad Baker-Mazar was making a layup, and I thought that is what separates this team, is they're not just three-point shooters. They can also drive and make a layup. They can drive and make a jumper, which was, like you said, what led Auburn to win the points in the paint battle, 38-26.
Yeah, 2 dudes, both with 11 points. We can start with one of them. Let's start with Miles. When we talked to him, I was thinking about this when he was talking. I asked him, Miles, you just had a big rebound game. Are we going to start seeing big guard Miles every game? Well, I think the answer is yes, because 8 rebounds in back-to-back games for Miles Kelly, exactly what this team needs, especially in a game like today. Chad, not Chad, Chaney, Denver, Dylan, Todd,
Foul
they're
trouble.
all in foul trouble. He's still crashing the glass. He loves to get rebounds, is what I'm thinking, because they were joking that he was like a rebound merchant and that he was stealing rebounds from them. That's what you want. I know these guys want their stats, and Miles is getting in there and taking some Johni rebounds. But that's what you want to see. Your guards, he's a 6'6" tough guy, can get in there, get some extra rebounds for you, and he can start offense. That's one thing that's happened a lot. He had 8 rebounds. I want to know how many of those they scored off of, because the amount of times Miles Kelly got a rebound off the glass, started a break, or started the offense, and they just flowed so naturally right into it. I would love to see that, because I thought it was a major, major impact on Auburn just setting up and getting into what they wanted to run.
I agree. I thought there was the point where Auburn started off 6-0. That was when they were driving to the paint, and then Miles Kelly opened it up with a 3. But then that was the only 3 he had all game, but that was okay. He was finding other ways to score, as I mentioned this before, driving to the basket. But then you just brought up rebounding, having 8 rebounds, which, looking at that was the second most on the team behind Johni Broome.
Yep.
More than Chaney Johnson was in foul pressure, but more than Dylan Cardwell, more than those bigs, Miles Kelly was making an impact. And whether he still obviously ended up with double digits, but getting the ball off the glass.
Big guard of the game. Miles Kelly, congratulations. You're Vince Wolfram's big guard of the game. I thought he was great on the defensive glass, got an offensive rebound too, and was able to knock down the shots when need be. The other guy, we'll touch on Chad Baker-Mazara.
Knock down shots when need be. Chad Baker-Mazara.
Exactly. Knock down shots when CB, because CB knocked down a couple tonight.
Yeah, I said Chad buzzer beater Mazara, because granted it was kind of not ruined, but going into halftime when Georgia knocked it down, but Chad Baker-Mazara knocked it down right before halftime, and that gave Auburn a lead.
Yeah, he's just a spark, and obviously I think the public has mixed feelings about him, because they say constantly he's going to cost Auburn. He's going to have one of those moments where he's going to cost him the game. It's not Yale. I was thinking about this the other day. He played 4 minutes. There's 36 more minutes in a basketball game. He never cost them the Yale game.
Yeah.
Chad Baker-Mazara, there's not been a game yet this year where he's cost us. In fact, I think he's a little bit of a mess.
To be honest, I didn't think he deserved a technical foul tonight.
No.
There are other aspects where, okay, he was talking to the bench. I see where the ref is coming from. Tonight, I didn't see it, so I feel like Auburn fans can't hate on that.
And I'll give him this, too. I think Chad Baker-Mazara is a mastermind at getting in other people's heads.
Oh, 100%.
He didn't say a word to Simoto Cyril, and Simoto Cyril said some words that I will never say on a program. and Chad Baker just sat there and laughed. He just sat there and laughed. You have to think what this guy goes through. And that's an element of it, too. And I think a lot of it is confidence. He has so much confidence in himself and in his game. He's still banged up. You can tell. I think there was a little bit of that. He didn't make the corner threes that he usually does. I think he's got a little tingleness in that left shoulder. But getting over that while also having all this doubt towards your name. And he comes in and he's in this arena smiling, hyping up fans, talking smack, because that's just what he does. I think you have to embrace it a little bit. There were some people at Duke that didn't like Grayson Allen, but there were some people that loved him. And there were some people at Duke that didn't like Christian Laettner. There was a documentary about it, but there's a lot of people that loved him.
There was a play that went viral in the NBA, which was Kevin Durant kind of clapping in Chris Paul's face, and all that was in my head was, this just reminds me of Chad Baker-Mazara. The way that Chad Baker-Mazara can get into an opponent's head and just kind of talk trash. It's not really called against Kevin Durant. It's called all the time against Chad Baker-Mazara in college basketball, but there was something about it when I was watching that game. I was like, Kevin Durant, like the way that they get into the other player's head was reminding me of Chad Baker-Mazara.
And this isn't the same Chad from a year ago. Like, learned is an understatement. I think he knows. Like, he is very cognizant of that, but it's just how he is. He has a gift for getting in other people's heads. As silly as that sounds, you got to look at it positively, because he's done nothing but help this team, and he helped this team get an 82-70 win today in a big way. And a lot of it I thought was from the free throw line down the stretch, especially. He and Denver both big time from the free throw line, wrapping down this game and putting the bow on it. But 33 minutes from him too, and a guy that's banged up. He didn't love being at practice yesterday because I think he was hurting. Today he looked like he loved being in this arena and having 2 feet on the basketball court.
I agree, but I just wanted to bring up free throw. Auburn was nearly 79%. Denver was perfect from the free throw line. Chad Baker-Mazara was perfect. Miles was perfect. Tahad was perfect. The only guys that missed free throws were Chaney Johnson and Johni Broome. That was it. Everyone else was perfect from the free throw line.
And I'll even argue this, too. First half, Auburn shot, 50% from the free throw line. They finished at 78. That means they shot 86 in the second.
86.4.
86.4% in the second half. That's what you need at this time of year. Things are going to start turning up. You're going to have more close games than you've had all year. Got to make the free throws, and they did down the stretch.
And I know Johni Broome missed them, and I know he's going to be on himself for that. I think it was after the Alabama game when he missed those 4 free throws. He tweeted out, he was like, I'm going to be in the gym tonight. I'm working on it. So I know that is killing him. So I definitely think that's something that obviously he's going to try to not make happen again.
Yeah, and I think there was a frustrating part in that first half where there were some free throws that didn't go down. Georgia started to make that comeback, and it was because they switched defenses. I actually looked on my camera. Because I sit at a weird angle. I couldn't really see what defense they were playing. I knew something was different because Auburn got stagnant. And there was the ball was moving around the perimeter. They would find the middle guy in this 1-2-2 zone that Georgia had switched to. They would find the middle guy, and the middle guy didn't know what in the world to do with the rock. He had 2 defenders down low. He didn't know where to go because the corner guys were guarded, wings are guarded. That's how 1-2-2 works. But Auburn adjusted, and that's important because there's been plenty of games where Bruce has talked about after that they should have adjusted the game plan. They had to today. No team has changed defenses on them yet. And Mike White, Bruce said it, he appreciated that Mike White tried that because it was something different, made Bruce's team adjust, and they did. The second half, you look at the second half versus the first, it's a completely different ball game. That's called second half adjustments. So shout out Burgo because I know he was probably cooking at halftime with some second half adjustments.
And that is Bruce Pearl talked about. He said, my goal for this team every single game is for them to get better. And he said, get better, but beat the people in front of us. And I think that's something that is really cool about this team is they're not focused on Alabama in a few weeks. They're focused on this game, and then when this game is over, the next game ahead. So now this game is over, they're focused on Ole Miss. And I think in this game, obviously, they noticed Mike White's defensive adjustments, and then they adjusted that. They're not worried about, oh, is he going to switch it again? Like, they just work on this game and continue, like Bruce Pearl said, to get better and beat the team in front of you, which I think I feel like a lot of coaches say they do it, but I think Auburn proves that they do it every single game.
Yeah, I think a good word to put with it is just acknowledgement. Like, there's a level of acknowledgement where you know something is happening, but there's also a level of that word where you implement it too. You acknowledge it, and you take that with you. That you can establish that word to a lot of different pieces and plates at the table on this team, whether it's being in technical positions where you get fouls like that, or how you adjust to having 3 guys with 4 fouls and 2 guys with 3. How you adjust when Johni Broome doesn't have a good game. How do you adjust when everybody else doesn't have a good game? Well, it looks like Johni Broome figured that out pretty quickly. How do you adjust when some team throws another defense at you? You have to acknowledge it and roll with it. And I think Auburn did that perfectly tonight and will help them immensely moving forward in changes of game plan and what teams throw at them. Because I know Chris Beard, I know Nate Oates, they're going to throw whatever they can at this Auburn team and try to knock down all 10 pins. They might not get all of them. They might not strike, but they're going to try to spare the best they can.
And considering this is Auburn's second time playing Georgia this season, it is hard to beat a team twice.
Very. Especially in this league. Whew.
Exactly.
Brother.
So with the next game coming up, Ole Miss, it's their second time playing it, but that at home too. So I think making those adjustments is crucial, playing a team for the second time, because you think you know them, and then it's just a completely different switch up.
And an adjustment tonight, too. Chad Baker-Mazara back in the starting lineup for Chris Moore. Auburn's bench points. They only had 8 tonight. Georgia outdid Auburn's bench. But in a game where you don't shoot the rock like you do,
And
Johni
Chaney
Broome,
Johnson in foul trouble.
Chaney Johnson in foul trouble. Johni Broome has the night he did. You're okay with that. And we've had games where it's been the starters, and this is another tally in that box.
Yeah, we always say that it can be anyone's game. And a 20-point game from Johni Broome is usual, and then you get everyone else scoring in double figures. But tonight, when it's 31 points, Johni Broome led this team to this win tonight. And that, as it should be for when you're a National Player of the Year candidate, there should be some games where your team is not shooting at all great. You step up and you lead your team to victory. And that's okay. Auburn still had Miles Kelly in double figures, Chad Baker-Mazara in double figures, Denver Jones in double figures. So the team coming together, but Johni Broome leading this team to this win.
I talked about Chad Baker having a genius to him. Johni Broome has that same genius in another way. And Bruce touched on it a little bit. He said, we had 4, and they didn't tonight. He talked about Johni's ability to almost pick his spots and pick his moments. We know he's extremely athletic, and he might not show it at times. But the way his pace of play, the way he gets to his spots, the way he trusts in what he knows he's best at, is something that separates him from most. We've talked about Chaney's ability to be patient and to get to his spots. Johni is on a whole nother stratosphere in terms of that. Gets the ball, sees everything, knows he's not the highest jumper. Maybe he works on that floater. He loves that pitch shot from the middle of the lane. Maybe it's a fadeaway where he puts the ball up higher, shoots it at a different arc. The way he uses his unique, he has a unique build. It's what it is. He's flat-footed. He's got big, strong legs, but he's not a jumper. It's just how he is. All of his weight seems to be on his heels, which is different for defenses. It's not your normal big man that's just going to crush you, but it's also it's not your Kristaps Porzingis, Big Z kind of big man either that's going to sit on the outside. How do you guard him? I mean, goodness gracious, I don't know what in the world would be my first step if I had to prepare for Johni Broome. But he can score at all three levels, mid-range, at the block, and from the three, and he does it in a unique way that best suits his build and his skill sets, and those two put together, it was like magic tonight.
And I love, we're obviously talking about this incredible game, and I love when he gets asked this question about having such a monster game, 31 points. He said, he brings up his teammates, how they find the way to get the ball to him, and his coaches putting him in good spots. He gives credit to himself, but he also is just giving credit to the coaching staff, Burgo coming up with the plans. He's giving credits to his teammates, finding him for assists, and I think that also just speaks to his character in a way. After a monster 31-point game, you're giving credit to your coaches and your teamates.
I want to get your thoughts on this, too, because when you're the number one team in the country, there's a lot of pressure. There's so much pressure. And for Auburn, they've been number one for, 6 weeks, about to be 7 next week. This team doesn't seem stressed in the slightest. Practices, light. Warm-ups, they're messing around. Ira Bowman's dancing. Chris Moore and Chad Baker-Mazar are running around doing WWE takedowns. This team is so light. It's like they have no worry in the world. And then they come in here, they talk smack, they take care of business, and they walk home with a W in their pocket. I don't know if they feel any of this pressure at all.
Do you want to know why? It's coming back to this answer that I think it was Ira Bowman who taught us, and I think a lot of them mentioned it, is this team genuinely likes each other, loves each other, chemistry, and you may not see that all over. And I also think I'm going to go all the way back to, what was it, the second game of the season, Houston, that fight?
Yep.
The horseplay, that completely changed the trajectory of this season and this team, and just... Yes, I agree with you. It seems like they're taking it seriously, but they're very light. They're not feeling this pressure of being the number one team in the country. They're preparing for every game, but I think it's because they genuinely like each other. They enjoy playing together. This coaching staff seems like they enjoy coaching this team more than anything, and that's my answer to that. As I think what Ira Bowman brought up, this team genuinely loves each other.
Another piece of it too is what Bruce said in his post game today. They can see the end of this coming. Auburn is full of older basketball players. Yep. It's what it is. College basketball has never been older as a sport. And Auburn, they have seniors. It is a senior-loaded roster. I think they realize that they don't have much longer in college basketball. Take advantage and soak up this environment. This is the best environment in college basketball. 9,100 people in here cheering like madmen. Experience that and live it to the most. And I think, Bruce, what he meant by that was deeper than just what he said.
Yep.
And you can tell that with these players. That's why they're standing here the entire second half going with this. As the SEC would say, it just means a little more to them. And you can tell that in the way they play. You can tell that in the way they treat each other. I think that's a special component of a basketball team.
I couldn't agree more. We've talked about constantly this older roster and this experience, which has helped Auburn to these gritty wins like tonight. But I think Bruce Pearl brought it up, and I kind of thought about it in a different way too. It's Johni Broome's last game coming up in Neville Arena. Chris Moore playing college basketball. Miles Kelly playing college basketball. Dylan Cardwell playing college basketball. And before this whole JUCO ruling, it would have been Denver Jones. It would have been Chad Baker-Mazar. It would have been Chaney Johnson.
Yeah.
That is almost... Besides Todd Pettiford, I don't know who else. That is almost Auburn's entire roster. So when you think about it from an emotional aspect, they're putting everything they have into every single game because it very well is so close to the end. Like that game against Alabama is most likely almost half this team's last game in Neville Arena. So compared that to a rivalry game, like these guys are going to pour their blood, sweat, and tears. And Bruce Pearl kind of brought that whole new perspective into this. I think that their effort and their passion is on a whole nother level compared to these other young rosters.
Yeah, and I think that's where the chippiness and the emotion comes from too. Is these guys want it so bad, and I wouldn't be saying that if it was any other team on the floor. But it's like I sit here at the baseline, and it's almost you can feel it. And I think the Georgia bench realized it. The Georgia staff realizes it. And it's like, what's the answer? You don't know. It's just because they have that glue that keeps them together. And it kept them together for 40 minutes today. Never were down in the ball game. Auburn comes out with a win, 82-70 against Georgia. I think it is tough to beat a team twice, and for Auburn to do it in the fashion that they did tonight, I like I said, I text myself my reminders in the middle of the game. 10 minutes left in the second half, I texted myself, lead feels comfortable. No matter score, lead feels comfortable. Not often that an Auburn fan can say that.
Mm-hmm.
There's been plenty of times, especially if you were around from August to December and watched any football, you felt that.
Yeah.
But for basketball, that's hard to come by.
Mm-hmm.
Auburn wasn't leading by very much. For me to say I feel comfortable with Auburn right now, it's like I felt like the defense would step up. I felt like they weren't going to let Georgia capitalize enough without an answer to take the lead and to try to take this game from them, and that's a cool feeling.
And I think that's why this team is the number one team in the country, is you feel comfortable. Like, you feel comfortable when they have leads that they're going to keep it up defensively. But also when this game is obviously not a case, but a game like Iowa State, which was early in the season, but you were down by so much. And that was, what was it, the Arkansas game? I think that had 11 lead changes when it was going back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
You trust this team to come back. You never lose hope. So one, you're feeling comfortable when they have a lead. And two, when they don't have a lead, you know that someone's going to step up and make that shot.
I think some of it is that they have beaten this team before. And next for Auburn is another team that they've beaten before. The next Indiana basketball coach, Chris Beard. I'm just kidding. I don't know if it's actually going to be the case. But Chris Beard and Ole Miss coming to Neville Arena early next week. I think this one's going to be a fantastic one. It was a great one in Oxford in last month. And I think it's going to be nothing short of the same next week when the Rebels come to town.
Yeah, last time when Auburn was in Oxford, there was the iconic Johni Broome picture over, the Ole Miss fans calling God after shooting that three. There was all starters of Auburn's started in double figures. It was Johni Broome, Miles Kelly, Chad Baker-Mazara, Dylan Cardwell, Denver Jones, all scored in double figures. I got that quick.
Come
I
on,
was
girl.
proud of myself. Woo! But there also is someone to watch out for, which is Sean Padula. He had nearly 30 points against Auburn last night, 29 points in a loss. Yeah. So definitely something to watch out for. But Auburn came off hot in Oxford, and I expect them to continue this streak of hot starts in Neville Arena next Wednesday.
I think it's Wednesday, yeah. And SP talked to us about Sean Padula. They didn't like how many points he put up in their last contest, so surely that will be a Denver Jones assignment over the next 2 days. Test due on Wednesday, and I think he's going to capitalize. So I'm looking at the rest of the roster to see what lineup changes and positions might be able to take advantage of some for Auburn. So watch the fouls, I think, too, because that might throw Auburn in a little bit of a tough spot. Might have to get an 8-ball kind of answer for maybe Jaheim Hudson, who is number 8. That was low-key fire.
I thought you did that on purpose. So.
But no, I think that game on Wednesday is going to be a great one. I think it'll be a good test, especially because Auburn has not shot the ball as well at home as they have on the road. And the Ole Miss game, they were tough on offense. A lot of points scored from both sides, Padula especially, Johni Broome, plenty of different ways, like you mentioned. But scoring the ball at home has been a tougher issue for Auburn than scoring on the road. So putting back-to-back games together, Arkansas, they didn't score the ball great. This game, second half, I guess you could say they scored the ball pretty great, or Johni Broome at least. Rest of the team, we'll see if they can put together a tough string of offensive games here down the stretch. It would be a nice thing to see heading into the big dance, but that's something I'm looking forward to. Can we get a little offensive consistency at home in Neville Arena?
Yeah, Auburn right now has a 2-game streak over Florida, which Alabama and Kentucky is still going on, so it could be over Alabama too, but for the SEC regular season title. So every game is important because it's a 2-game streak, but there are 4 games left to play.
I believe so, yeah.
Yes,
A&M,
there are 4 games left to play.
Kentucky, Ole Miss,
and Alabama. Ooh, I was right. 4 games left to play. So that's something to definitely keep in mind, too.
Definitely. That game is set for Wednesday. I believe it is a 6 o'clock game, which will save us.
Yes, it is. I'm so excited. Yay!
Let's go. Yeah, not an 8 p.m. tip. Those are brutal. But we do have an episode with Chris Moore coming up as well. So make sure to tune in for that one before the Ole Miss game.
Mo in the show.
But we do have Mo in the show. And Mo meaning toasts.
Yes. So doing 2 toasts because we cannot toast. I feel like one of yours has to be Johni Broome, 31 points, 19 in the second half, 17 under 13 minutes. I'm doing a lot of math tonight and kind of killing it.
It's
anyway.
awesome. We talked about journalism last episode. This is mathematicas.
But I have to have one toast to Johni Broome. But my second toast is to one player on Oklahoma. Oklahoma beating Mississippi State 93-87 team, which was super crucial for them because Oklahoma is a bubble team. So that was a great win for them. Shout out to Jeremiah Fields. He had 27 points in that win from a freshman. But my toast is not to Jeremiah Fields. It is to Duke Miles. If you like college basketball, I'm sure this was all over your Twitter feed as it was mine. This man dove for a loose ball, lost multiple teeth on the court. They showed the replay. They were zooming in on the teeth, which I was like, this is kind of crazy to zoom in on. And he went back into the game.
Just making sure I still have mine.
So I am toasting to Duke Miles. To lose teeth and still come back in the game, that's a dog.
Well, you know what, Mr. Miles? Better days tomorrow because the tooth fairy comes when you lose a tooth. You might find some dollar bills under your pillow. All right, my toast, first toast, I think it's got to be Turtle. Coming into the game, doing what people didn't expect coming into this game. 3 offensive rebounds, got a bucket too. Jaheim Hudson gets my first toast of the day. My second toast of the day, we're going to the Big Ten. And yes, Oregon is a Big Ten team. They played 11th ranked Wisconsin today in Madison, and they were down 14 with 6 minutes to play. Made a shot with a couple seconds left, forced the game to overtime. They came back, proved to Wisconsin that they were here, and won the game by 4. So shout out to the Ducks. They're 20-8, a 77-73 win for Oregon, but down 14 with 6 minutes left. What are you, Reggie Miller on roids? I mean, goodness gracious, that's crazy.
I was watching College Game Day this morning, and I think the entire panel picked Washington. I don't even know where that came from. Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Wrong
the
W.
Cheeseheads. Cheeseheads go down to the Ducks. So, yeah, shout out to Oregon, I guess. Shout out to the West Coast and, I guess, the Big Ten. I think that's still so weird, but whatever.
Didn't Oregon beat Alabama earlier this year? What is that? In Las Vegas?
No say. I don't really pay attention to either of those teams.
Oh, okay. I'm pretty sure that happened. If not.
Who knows? But Oregon and Turtle get my toast today. 2 green things, right? Turtles, green shells, green animals. Oregon Ducks repping the green Nike gear. So those are my 2 toasts today. Good toasts all around today. How about that? Happy Saturday, Auburn faithful. Maybe you can go toast tonight to the 82-70 win over the Georgia Bulldogs for your number 1 ranked Auburn Tigers, which are looking to be number 1 for the 7th straight week in a row. A new record. We love new weeks. We love new records.
We do.
So shout out to the Auburn basketball team for another win and another great week.
And I'm excited for you guys to see that Chris Moore interview drop, talking with the guy who's been here for 5 years, veteran Uncle Mo. It's a funny one, so be sure to be on the lookout for that.
Always more to see with us. You can always see Mo content on our YouTube, on our Instagram, and on our Twitters, so make sure you check that stuff out. That episode, I believe, will drop on Tuesday before the game, so make sure you tune in. We'll have, obviously, clips, this episode dropping. We got awesome stuff on the way, and we're closing out the regular season, which is absolutely nuts to think about.
Yeah, no one wants to see me after the Alabama game because we were both seniors, so I will probably be wreck. So.
28 days this month. March is coming up quicker than you might believe. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be the best month of the year, always is, and it's not because of my birthday. It's because of the big dance. It's going to be great. You got anything else for us today?
Nope, it's going to be awesome. We will see you for that Chris Moore interview. We'll see you for the Ole Miss recap, which it will not be that late. 6 o'clock game, so I am so excited, but... On the court of Neville Arena, I'm JoJo CAVANAGH.
And my name is Vince WOLFRAM. War Eagle.
War Eagle.